February 19th, 1945. The gray dawn barely cut through the thick haze over the Pacific. The sea was a restless churn of green and gray, broken by the silhouettes of amphibious landing craft pushing toward black volcanic sands. Explosions rocked the shoreline, sending plumes of smoke and sand into the air, mingling with the acrid scent of cordite and burning fuel. On the beach, Marines pressed forward under withering fire. Every step was a gamble. Shell craters and jagged rocks tore at boots and uniforms, while Japanese machine guns concealed in camouflage bunkers raked the sand with deadly precision. Some men scrambled behind smoldering wrecks of tanks for cover, eyes wide with fear and determination. The roar of naval artillery from offshore ships shook the ground beneath them, sending tremors through the sand and through their chests. Above, the sky was streaked with tracer rounds and the occasional flash of a mortar impact. Dust hung thick in the air, coating skin and lungs alike. Yet through the chaos, the Marines pushed forward, gripping rifles, flamethrowers, and the sheer resolve to survive. Every shout, every explosion, every heartbeat counted. This was no ordinary landing. It was a descent into hell, a crucible that would test courage, endurance, and the price of victory. The first wave hit the volcanic sands, and with it, the battle for Iwo Jima began in earnest. The island, scarred and unforgiving, would demand a sacrifice no one had fully imagined, setting the stage for one of the most brutal campaigns of the Pacific War. By early 1945, the Pacific War had reached a critical juncture. American forces had wrested control of key islands across the Central Pacific, moving ever closer to the Japanese home islands. Okinawa, Saipan, and the Mariana Islands had been won at tremendous cost, and each victory revealed the scale of Japanese tenacity. Iwo Jima, a tiny volcanic island just 750 miles south of Tokyo, loomed large on military maps, not for its size, but for its strategic value. The island was small, only about 8 square miles, yet it held an airfield capable of supporting Japanese fighter planes and radar installations. From this vantage, Japanese forces could launch attacks on American B-29 bombers en route to Japan, threatening the air campaign designed to weaken the Japanese mainland. For the Allies, capturing Iwo Jima was more than symbolic. It was a tactical imperative. It would provide a base for fighter escorts, emergency landing for bombers, and a springboard for the final assaults on Japan itself. Japanese commanders, led by Lieutenant General Tadamaki Kurabayashi, had fortified Iwo Jima into a fortress unlike any seen before. The volcanic terrain was transformed into a deadly network of bunkers, tunnels, and pillboxes. Hills, cliffs, and ridges were embedded with machine guns and artillery, hidden in camouflage positions. Every slope offered a line of fire. Every cave concealed a soldier ready to strike. Kurabayashi understood that the Americans would approach with superior numbers and firepower. His strategy was not to hold the beaches at all costs, but to bleed the invaders, forcing a protracted and costly battle that would sap morale and delay further advances toward Japan. The United States military, aware of the stakes, planned meticulously. Task Force 56, under Vice Admiral Richmond K. Turner, coordinated amphibious landings with naval bombardment and air support. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th Marine Divisions, totaling over 70,000 men, would bear the brunt of the assault. Artillery ships, cruisers, and destroyers were positioned offshore, tasked with softening defenses. Aerial reconnaissance provided limited intelligence, but much of the island's defenses remained hidden, shielded by volcanic ridges and tunnels. February 19th, 1945 was chosen for the landing, coinciding with high tides and favorable weather. Yet even with careful planning, commanders knew that Iwo Jima would test every element of modern amphibious warfare. Landing craft would face surf, reefs, and enemy fire. Marines would be exposed on open beaches, forced to navigate jagged volcanic rock while under continuous bombardment. The operation demanded coordination across sea, air, and land forces, Yet the fog of war promised chaos. From the Japanese perspective, this was a fight for national survival. Kurabayashi's instructions emphasized tenacity and innovation. Soldiers would hold positions to the last, using tunnels to evade bombardment and strike from unexpected angles. Ammunition and supplies were stockpiled in hidden bunkers. Anti-tank and artillery positions were camouflaged along ridges overlooking beaches. Every element of the island was weaponized, every natural feature transformed into a defensive tool. For the invaders, the threat was not only in numbers, but in the ingenuity and resolve of the defenders. The stage was set. Two determined forces, one seeking to secure a strategic stepping stone toward Japan, the other committed to defending homeland territory at almost any cost. The landing on Iwo Jima would not be a swift conquest. It would be a grueling, bloody engagement that tested courage, leadership, and the very limits of endurance. As February 19, 1945, dawned, the first light revealed Iwo Jima's jagged volcanic coastline. The beaches, blackened by ash and rock, stretched before the approaching amphibious fleet. Waves lapped against reefs, and the morning air carried a tense stillness, broken only by the distant rumble of naval guns. Marines peered over the side of landing craft, hearts pounding, knowing that each step onto the sand could be met with death. The initial bombardment had begun hours earlier. Battleships and cruisers unleashed salvo after salvo, aiming to destroy coastal defenses. Aircraft from nearby carriers swept over the island, strafing positions, dropping bombs, and attempting to disorient the defenders. Yet much of Kurabayashi's fortifications remained concealed. The volcanic ridges, tunnels, and cleverly camouflaged bunkers absorbed or diverted much of the bombardment. Japanese gunners waited silently, poised to strike the moment Marines set foot on the beach. The landing itself was chaotic. Amphibious tractors and Higgins boats struggled through reefs and surf, many grounded or damaged before reaching shore. Marines disembarked under relentless fire. Artillery shells screamed overhead, machine gun bullets tore through the sand, and mortars erupted in clouds of smoke. The volcanic ash made footing treacherous. Men sank into soft sand or stumbled over jagged rocks. Progress was slow. Every advance was measured in yards, every step met with resistance. Japanese defensive strategy revealed its lethal ingenuity. Kurabayashi had avoided concentrated beach defenses, instead dispersing troops inland, using hidden artillery and creating interlocking fields of fire. Tunnels allowed soldiers to move undetected, emerging behind advancing Marines to strike unexpectedly. The landscape itself became an ally of the defenders. Steep ridges, deep craters, and narrow passes channeled attackers into kill zones. The effect was devastating. Despite overwhelming numbers and firepower, American forces were slowed and battered at every stage. By the end of the first day, casualties were already mounting. Marines, exhausted and disoriented, struggled to establish footholds. Commanders coordinated artillery and naval fire to suppress Japanese positions, but even heavy bombardment could not neutralize the labyrinth of tunnels and pillboxes. Every bunker that was destroyed revealed another hidden threat. The defenders' patience and preparation made the island a fortress. It was clear that Iwo Jima would not be taken quickly or easily. Beyond the immediate struggle, the terrain posed logistical challenges. Supplies had to be landed under fire and transported across jagged beaches. Medical evacuation of wounded was perilous. Stretchers could not traverse rocky ash fields easily, and naval vessels offshore faced constant threat from Japanese artillery. Communication between units was critical but fragile, dependent on runners, radios, and pre-established signals. Each decision carried immense weight, as delays could cost lives. The human element of the battle became painfully apparent. Marines displayed extraordinary courage, advancing under fire, improvising cover, and supporting each other in small squads. Meanwhile, Japanese soldiers endured equally severe conditions, often isolated in underground positions for days, rationing limited supplies, and prepared to fight to the death. Morale, discipline, and sheer endurance became as decisive as weaponry. By the third day, the full scope of the battle was clear. Iwo Jima was not a conventional engagement, but a grinding confrontation of attrition. The island's defenses, combined with natural obstacles, transformed every advance into a fight for survival. Naval and air support could soften positions, but could not replace the need for determined infantry action. Every hill taken, every bunker destroyed, came at the cost of lives and time. The stage was set for the subsequent angles of the battle: human resilience, tactical innovation, technological application, and leadership under fire. Understanding the extreme conditions, terrain, and defensive measures is essential to appreciate the intensity and significance of the Battle of Iwo Jima. The human cost of Iwo Jima was staggering, and its story is inseparable from the people who endured it. Marines advanced through choking clouds of volcanic ash, sand clinging to sweat-soaked uniforms, their boots sinking with every step. Each man faced the psychological weight of unseen enemies hidden in tunnels, knowing a sudden volley could end life instantly. Fear was omnipresent, yet courage persisted. Small squads improvised cover with craters and debris, dragging wounded comrades to relative safety. Acts of bravery were constant, but often invisible. Medics risking fire to reach the injured, soldiers covering their friends with suppressing fire, and men pressing forward despite exhaustion, heat, and the constant sound of artillery and machine guns. The grueling conditions tested physical endurance and mental resilience in ways few could imagine. Equally striking was the determination of Japanese defenders. Isolated in dugouts and tunnels, soldiers rationed meager supplies, enduring heat, dampness, and limited ventilation. They emerged strategically to ambush advancing troops, utilizing intimate knowledge of terrain. Kurobayashi's emphasis on decentralized command meant units operated independently, relying on discipline and initiative. This human element, both American determination and Japanese ingenuity, defined the ferocity and tenacity of the battle. Every yard gained came at a profound human price, highlighting the harsh reality of warfare. Tactical angle. Tactically, Iwo Jima represented a paradigm shift in assaulting fortified islands. Kurobayashi rejected traditional beach defenses, instead dispersing positions inland, using high ground, tunnels, and interlocking fields of fire. This forced U.S. forces to advance cautiously, often exposed to crossfire from multiple concealed positions. Marines could not rely solely on brute force or frontal assaults. Each operation required coordinated artillery, air support, and squad-level ingenuity. Naval bombardment softened certain areas but failed to neutralize deeply embedded positions. Amphibious landings had to account for reefs, ash-laden beaches, and narrow corridors leading into kill zones. Progress was incremental, measured in yards rather than miles, and every tactical decision carried immense weight. The Japanese defensive approach effectively turned the island itself into a weapon, demonstrating that thoughtful tactics could offset numerical and technological disadvantages. Technological angle. Technology played a critical but limited role in the battle. Amphibious landing craft, tanks modified for ash and reef navigation, flamethrowers, and heavy artillery were essential tools. Flamethrower units, often working in coordination with demolitions, became vital in clearing bunkers and fortified positions. However, the volcanic terrain reduced the mobility of mechanized units, forcing reliance on infantry tactics. Communication systems, including radios and signal flares, were essential for coordinating naval gunfire and artillery support, as well as directing medical evacuation and supply lines under fire. Despite the available technology, success depended on how effectively it was integrated with human action and tactical planning. The battle underscored the limits of technology when faced with clever defenses and harsh terrain. Leadership angle. Leadership at Iwo Jima was tested under relentless pressure. Commanders like General Holland Smith and Colonel Kurabayashi faced unique challenges, balancing operational objectives with minimizing casualties, directing resources across fragmented battlefields, and making split-second decisions amid chaos. For the Americans, leadership involved coordinating multiple branches, Marines, Navy, and support units, while maintaining morale under sustained losses. Kurabayashi, by contrast, exercised decentralized leadership, empowering subordinate units to act independently within a clear strategic framework. His meticulous preparation, understanding of terrain, and anticipation of American tactics prolonged the defense and inflicted maximum attrition. Leadership on both sides was a defining factor, shaping the flow of combat, the resilience of troops, and the outcomes of tactical engagements. From a Japanese viewpoint, Iwo Jima was a calculated last stand. Kurabayashi's strategy aimed not merely at holding ground, but at inflicting maximum casualties to deter future invasions of the Japanese mainland. Commanders knew reinforcements were impossible. Resupply by sea was heavily restricted by American naval and air superiority. Every bunker, tunnel, and camouflage position was designed to make the American advance costly. Report from American troops revealed the psychological impact. Sudden bursts of machine gun fire, hidden artillery positions, and snipers created an environment of constant tension. The enemy's use of tunnels allowed defenders to vanish and reappear unpredictably, striking where the Americans least expected. This guerrilla-style adaptation within a conventional battlefield highlighted the strategic ingenuity of Japanese forces and forced U.S. commanders to continually adjust tactics under fire. Moral angle. Iwo Jima raised profound moral questions for both sides. For the Americans, every advance meant heavy casualties, including the young, often inexperienced Marines facing almost certain danger. Operational innovation angle. Iwo Jima highlighted operational innovation in amphibious assault. American forces adapted landing techniques to volcanic beaches and narrow corridors, coordinating naval gunfire, aerial bombing, and close-quarters infantry tactics. Flamethrowers, demolition charges, and specialized tanks were deployed to counter entrenched defenses. Supply lines and casualty evacuation were meticulously managed despite constant enemy fire on a challenging terrain. Kurabayashi's innovation lay in defensive depth. By moving away from conventional beachfront fortifications and creating a network of interconnected bunkers, caves, and tunnels, he forced attackers to fight continuously through constrained, deadly terrain. Both sides demonstrated that innovation, whether in offensive coordination or defensive strategy, was decisive in modern warfare, particularly in island assaults with extreme environmental challenges. Psychological angle. The psychological strain of Iwo Jima was immense. American troops faced relentless bombardment, the sight of comrades killed or wounded, and the omnipresent threat of ambush. Fatigue, heat, and ash-covered terrain intensified stress, yet cohesion and training enabled small units to function effectively. Morale fluctuated with progress. Each bunker cleared brought relief and renewed tension as new threats emerged. Japanese defenders endured comparable psychological pressure, compounded by isolation, scarce supplies, and the knowledge that no reinforcement would arrive. Yet discipline, ideology, and leadership sustained their resolve. The battle demonstrated that psychological endurance, how soldiers managed fear, fatigue, and uncertainty, was as critical as tactical skill or firepower in determining the effectiveness of forces under extreme conditions. February 19, 1945. The morning mist hovered over the beaches of Iwo Jima. The roar of naval artillery shattered the pre-dawn calm. Thousands of Marines, tightly packed into landing craft, braced for the onslaught. The first wave surged onto the volcanic black sand, boots sinking with every step. Shells exploded, tossing plumes of ash and debris into the air. The Japanese defenders, hidden in caves and bunkers, unleashed machine gun fire, mortars, and artillery. The first wave faltered, men were pinned down, some cut off entirely. Every foot gained was a struggle, a life-risking advance across terrain designed to favor the enemy. Flamethrower tanks and demolitions teams pressed forward, clearing pillboxes inch by inch. Commanders relayed orders through field radios, shouting over the cacophony, coordinating artillery support to suppress enemy fire. By mid-morning, the Americans had secured small beachheads, yet every move inland revealed new layers of defensive positions. Narrow ridges and volcanic ash hills provided observation points for snipers and artillery crews. The pace of advance slowed under constant fire. Marines adapted quickly, employing fire and movement tactics, covering one another while suppressing enemy positions. The psychological toll was immediate. Exhaustion, smoke, heat, and the constant sight of casualties weighed heavily. Yet leadership and training held the units together. Each bunker cleared, each hill seized, represented not just territory, but a step toward breaking the Japanese defensive network. By the evening of February 19th, the Americans had gained critical footholds, but the cost was evident. Thousands of Marines were already casualties. The battle's turning point lay not in a single explosion or assault, but in the relentless advance, the grinding pressure applied to a determined enemy through coordination, firepower, and courage. February 23, 1945. Mount Suribachi loomed over the island, blackened and scarred, its summit still firmly in Japanese hands. The Marines had fought for 4 days, clearing ridges, pillboxes, and interconnected bunkers that turned the volcanic terrain into a deadly labyrinth. Every advance required coordination between infantry, tanks, flamethrowers, and naval gunfire support. The assault on Suribachi's slopes was grueling. Japanese forces, deeply entrenched, fired relentlessly from hidden positions. Every Marine movement risked sniper fire or artillery bursts. Smoke and dust filled the air, making communication difficult. Field radios crackled intermittently, carrying orders, requests for fire support, and casualty reports. The technological edge of coordinated artillery and armored support allowed Marines to suppress enemy strongpoints, slowly carving paths through the defenses. By late morning, small assault teams reached the final ridges. They fought room to room, bunker to bunker. Each captured position was immediately reinforced. Supply lines were extended under fire to keep momentum. Marines improvised under pressure, using demolition charges to neutralize pillboxes and tunnels. The Japanese defenders, despite being outnumbered, continued fierce resistance, demonstrating the depth of their preparation and resolve. At 10:30 a.m., a critical moment arrived. A squad raised a U.S. flag atop the summit of Suribachi. The signal was simple, yet profound, a psychological victory as well as a symbolic one. It demonstrated that relentless coordination, combined arms tactics, and sustained pressure could overcome even the most formidable defenses. The following days saw the continuation of brutal combat across the island. The Japanese defenses, though gradually collapsing, forced Marines into close-quarter engagements, tunnels, and caves where flamethrowers and demolition teams were essential. Casualties mounted daily, yet the disciplined advance never halted. By the end of March 1945, the island was officially declared secure. The Battle of Iwo Jima illustrated the staggering price of victory. Thousands of Marines and Japanese soldiers dead, scorched terrain, and a testament to the convergence of courage, planning, and firepower. This decisive turning point shifted control in the Pacific, opening a path for further Allied operations toward Japan. March 26, 1945. The last pockets of Japanese resistance had been extinguished. Iwo Jima lay in ruins, blackened volcanic ash mingling with twisted metal, shattered bunkers, and the remnants of the island's infrastructure. The human toll was staggering. Of the approximately 21,000 Japanese defenders, nearly 21,000 were killed, with only a few hundred taken prisoner. Their meticulous fortifications and fanatical defense had exacted a deadly price, leaving the island a grim monument to their determination. For the Americans, the victory was equally costly. Of the 70,000 Marines who landed, over 6,800 were killed and more than 19,000 wounded. Casualty reports described shattered limbs, burns, and a psychological trauma of continuous close-quarter combat. The harsh volcanic terrain amplified suffering. Heat, dust, and smoke made medical evacuation slow, and frontline medics faced the impossible task of triage under fire. Letters and post-war accounts convey the exhaustion and determination that carried the Marines through weeks of relentless battle. Strategically, the capture of Iwo Jima provided a critical airbase for the United States. Its proximity to Japan allowed fighter escorts for B-29 bombers on raids over the home islands and created emergency landing fields for damaged aircraft. Military planners had long understood its value, yet the ferocity of the defense had exceeded expectations, forcing a re-evaluation of operational planning for future Pacific assaults, including Okinawa and eventual operations on the Japanese. Infantry, artillery, and air support, ensuring that combined arms would suppress entrenched defenders more effectively. The human cost remained a central concern. Marine Corps leadership studied casualty reports, medical evacuations, and battlefield trauma to improve the welfare of soldiers in subsequent operations. Psychological resilience, small unit cohesion, and rapid battlefield medicine were emphasized. The sheer intensity of Iwo Jima highlighted the need to balance strategic objectives with the preservation of manpower, even when assaulting critical positions. The broader impact on Japanese strategy was severe. Iwo Jima's fall demonstrated that even the most resolute defenses could be overcome by relentless attrition, superior firepower, and effective coordination. Japanese military planners faced the stark reality that island defenses alone could no longer prevent American advances. Morale, already strained by the string of defeats in the Pacific, suffered further, foreshadowing the desperate measures seen in later battles. In sum, Iwo Jima's aftermath combined operational success with profound sacrifice. The lessons learned influenced the final months of the Pacific War, shaping tactics, logistics, and strategic planning while leaving an enduring testament to human endurance, courage, and the relentless cost of victory. By April 1945, the Battle of Iwo Jima had become a defining moment in the Pacific theater. The island's capture reshaped operational planning for the Allied advance toward Japan. Its airfields allowed fighter escorts for bombing raids, reducing losses among B-29 bombers and providing emergency landing sites that saved thousands of aircrews. Logistics, previously constrained by distance and enemy resistance, now had a forward base to support operations against the Japanese mainland. The tactical lessons were harsh, but clear. Pre-invasion bombardments, while extensive, had not fully neutralized Japanese fortifications. Underground tunnels, camouflaged pillboxes, and interlocking defensive positions had forced Marines into deadly close-quarters combat. Future assaults, most notably Okinawa, would see adjustments in artillery use, naval bombardment, and amphibious tactics. Commanders documented the need for improved coordination between infantry, artillery, and air support, ensuring that combined arms would suppress entrenched defenders more effectively. The human cost remained a central concern. Marine Corps leadership studied casualty reports, medical evacuations, and battlefield trauma to improve the welfare of soldiers in subsequent operations. Psychological resilience, small unit cohesion, and rapid battlefield medicine were emphasized. The sheer intensity of Iwo Jima highlighted the need to balance strategic objectives with the preservation of manpower, even when assaulting critical positions. The broader impact on Japanese strategy was severe. Iwo Jima's fall demonstrated that even the most resolute defenses could be overcome by relentless attrition, superior firepower, and effective coordination. Japanese military planners faced the stark reality that island defenses alone could no longer prevent American advances. Morale, already strained by the string of defeats in the Pacific, suffered further, foreshadowing the desperate measures seen in later battles. In sum, Iwo Jima's aftermath combined operational success with profound sacrifice. The lessons learned influenced the final months of the Pacific War, shaping tactics, logistics, and strategic planning while leaving an enduring testament to human endurance, courage, and the relentless cost of victory. Iwo Jima stands as a stark reminder of the human cost behind strategic victories. Across its black volcanic sands, thousands of Marines fought not for glory but for survival, for the lives of comrades, and for the broader objective of ending a war that had engulfed the Pacific. Each hill, each bunker, each crater bore witness to courage and suffering in equal measure. The iconic flag raising on Mount Suribachi captured only a fraction of the struggle, an emblem of hope amid relentless adversity. The battle also redefined modern warfare. It demonstrated how air power, naval bombardment, and amphibious operations could converge against a fortified position. Yet it underscored the limits of technology when faced with human ingenuity and determination. Japanese defenders, entrenched deep within the island, forced tactical adaptations that would influence military planning long after the war ended. Logistics, medical care, and small unit coordination were tested under extreme conditions, leaving lessons that shaped future military doctrine. Beyond tactics and strategy, Iwo Jima reminds us of the profound human dimension of conflict. Soldiers endured heat, smoke, and unyielding resistance, forging bonds of trust and resilience that survive in historical memory. The island became a crucible, revealing both the fragility and strength of humanity in war. Victory came at a terrible price, one measured not only in strategic advantage, but in lives irretrievably altered or lost. Ultimately, Iwo Jima is a testament to endurance, sacrifice, and the weight of decision-making in war. It reflects the duality of conflict, the necessity of strategic triumph, and the human cost embedded within it. Its legacy endures not as a story of conquest alone, but as a reminder that history is forged through courage, perseverance, and the relentless pursuit of purpose, even in the most harrowing circumstances.